One of the things that people are going to be encountering over the next few weeks as discussion about the Senate bill begins to percolate is this, that for months now, behind the scenes, Congress people have been lining up senators and members of Congress in both parties to support this piece of legislation that would effectively make it illegal to advocate for the BDS campaign. Now, when you take a look at the legislation, it's kind of interesting because some of the senators who have been advocates and sponsors of this legislation have begun to express the idea that, well, maybe it's really not quite as bad as all that. And they essentially have tried to say that, well, we read this a little bit differently. We don't read this as interfering with your First Amendment rights. But all you have to do is take a look at the legislation itself. Look at the language in the bill. It does two very important things. One is that it makes it illegal for any person in the United States to request, not to boycott, not to say I will boycott, not to say I am boycotting, but to request that anyone else participate in the BDS campaign. So in other words, what Senator Gillibrand, who is the junior senator from New York, who says that, well, she doesn't really think it's all that bad. What she's advocating, and what the Democrats and Republicans who have signed on to this are advocating, is that it would be illegal for you to go to your labor union, your community organization, your church, your mosque, or your synagogue, and say, I think our organization should support the BDS campaign. It would make it illegal to simply advocate for the campaign itself. The other really important feature of this law, which they are not talking about, is that presently there is a law on the books that makes it illegal for people to participate in boycotts that have been initiated by countries against friends of the United States. This legislation dramatically expands that by saying that it's not only countries that have supported or implemented boycotts, it's international governmental organizations. And the bill actually says, in case anyone wasn't really sure what they mean by that the United Nations Human Rights Campaign is one of the organizations that you specifically cannot support if they decide to boycott Israel. Another organization, international intergovernmental organization, that you specifically cannot support is the European Union. So what we're saying is, if this legislation passes, it doesn't matter that millions of people all over the world say that what Israel is doing is wrong and that they're calling for a boycott and divestment and sanctions. It doesn't matter that if the European Union agrees. It doesn't matter if the United Nations agrees. It will still be illegal in the United States to advocate for that. So, okay, so there's a bill on the, let's say there's a law on the books. And some people would say, well, you know, there's a law that's kind of like that already. They passed laws like this before. Maybe it doesn't really make that much of a difference. But here's the clincher. Not only does this legislation make it illegal to advocate for the boycott, it actually says specifically, if you are found civilly liable for breaking this law, you can be fined up to $250,000. If you are found criminally liable for knowingly and willfully violating this statute, you can be fined up to $1 million or receive a jail sentence up to 20 years. It's so flagrantly in violation of the First Amendment that it's shameful that any congressperson or any U.S. senator would put their name on it. It's especially shameful at a time when Democrats and Republicans are giving us a lot of lip service about how important it is to protect the free speech of fascists, and yet they're not interested in protecting our free speech to join with other people all over the world to denounce war crimes against people in Israel. As far as I'm concerned, there's really only one response, which is an appropriate response to this piece of legislation. They are threatening us. They're saying if we pass this, you will become illegal because you have advocated this position. So I think there's really only one appropriate response. If you've got a free right hand, raise your right hand. I promise that if this bill is signed into law, I will continue to publicly, vocally, and willfully violate the law.
I will continue to publicly, vocally, and willfully violate the law.
By continuing to affirm my opposition to actions of the Israeli government,
by continuing to affirm my opposition to actions of the Israeli government
that violate fundamental human rights, and I promise to continue to affirm my support for the liberation of the people of Palestine.
And I promise to continue to support the liberation of the people of Palestine.
Thank you.
Free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!